Hi there, this is Izzy. It's nice to see you again. I'm afraid I've had a bit of an accident. As you can see, my Phalaenopsis has fallen on the floor and totally out of its pot. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the roots, take a look at the plant, and repot this orchid. So, as you can see, this orchid's got a really nice set of roots down here. Some of these are very green because they're photosynthesizing, and some of them might need removing later. It's also got 8 good healthy leaves, that's quite a lot, 2 good aerial roots, and 1 broken flower spike thanks to the fall. So I don't think that's going to do anything anymore. So we may as well remove it. We'll remove it just above the next healthy node, but there's no point in keeping it in general. So we can also see that it's got the other flower spike up here. This one's doing really well. So when I bought this orchid, the flowers were dying off. It was a rescue orchid from a shop. So I cut off this flower spike just above the last growing node, and as you can see, that's encouraged it to shoot out 2 nice sets of new buds. So I would have expected flowers from this in the near future if I hadn't dropped it out the pot. So taking a look again at the roots, this is the first time I've actually had it out of the pot since I bought it because it was flowering and I didn't want to stress it. But as you can see, it's got this original pot and original medium in the centre. So this original pot is a little plastic frame, and inside that is what's almost like foam. So this will be what the greenhouse grower grew the orchid in when it was a seedling. And so this is going to be a medium that's great for a greenhouse, but not so good for me. I find that a lot of greenhouse media are too water retentive, so I'm going to remove this and remove that foam block so that I can get more aeration to the roots. What I would normally do when I get any new orchid is take it out the pot, take a look at the roots and see how healthy they are and whether I need to change the medium. Often I do need to change the medium away from the greenhouse grower's medium because it just retains too much moisture and that means the roots might rot. So if we take this one off, we can actually also see how the roots are doing inside this foam block and see whether they're still healthy or whether we might need to remove them in order to keep the rest of the roots healthy. Most of the roots here have grown quite well around that pot. You can see that there's good root structure and that clearly it's been in that little wire frame for a long time before it was put in its adult pot. But if we just remove the foam block here, we can actually see that it's got quite a few roots that have gone through the foam block. So it was quite enjoying growing through there. Wow, there's actually quite a lot of roots in there. So unusually it had a fantastic time in that foam block. Well, not unusually, it's the greenhouse, so it's perfect conditions. But and we're going to have to see how it copes now without that foam block. But I do need to get all this medium off so that I can put my own more airy medium around those roots. I want to make sure I get out all of these bits of the old medium because they're not too attached onto the roots, but if they were more attached on, you can see there's a couple of bits of bark that I've actually left on down below. I wouldn't take them off because that might damage the roots. And as we can see, most of the roots are actually really healthy. So the roots of orchids these epiphytic orchids have a central core which is holding this one on in spite of the fact that it's rotted part way up, and an outer sheath, which is why this one's still green down there. So some orchid roots can actually still be alive even though they are looking dead part way up. Although this one is hollow and it's bendy, so this one is definitely dead and I can take it off. I'm taking off any dead roots so that they don't rot in the new medium and cause this plant some problems. As you can see, some of its roots are growing from new root tips there, so that's promising. So most of these roots are looking healthy. It's what I would expect for most hybrid Phalaenopsises that you buy in the shop, is that they grow quite vigorously and have quite good roots and leaves, but this one seems to be especially good. So now I'm going to get it back into this pot, twist it around a little bit to help those new root tips settle in. And this pot is the pot it came in. I haven't drilled any extra holes. I might do that for aeration in the future so that I can get more airflow around the roots. But at the minute it's got quite a big set of holes in the bottom, so I'll see how it goes with those. But if I find that it's not drying out quickly enough, I might actually drill some more holes in the future. I'm also going to repot it with my standard bark mix. I tend to use more bark than things like sphagnum moss because I'm growing at home and I'm not using any special equipment, which means that things like sphagnum moss, I'd need really good aeration and possibly really small plants in order to make sure that it worked out and I didn't get rot and things like that. So I use bark chips, and I find that they work for the majority of my orchids. And bark chips, the majority of my bark chips also come from my reptiles, but you can get bark chips with extra added nutrients for the orchids as well. So this orchid is looking pretty healthy all round. It's got a good root system. It does have flower buds. We'll see whether those stay on, fingers crossed. But in general, this orchid is doing really well, apart from the fact that it's a little bit wobbly after I've repotted it. I might have to stake it to keep it upright. But for now, thanks ever so much for listening. Fingers crossed this orchid recovers okay. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please rate, review, subscribe and like it, and I hope to see you again soon.